Hello and welcome to a new chapter of Indie Talks. Today we have with us a brand established in 1967 by Mr. Armin Strom, a legend in the art of hand skeletonization. In 2008, master watchmaker Claude Greisler and businessman Sir Michel revitalized the brand with the opening of Armin Strom's first fully integrated manufacturer. Today we have with us Claude Greisler to know more about Armin Strom. Welcome, Claude. It's a pleasure to have you with us at Indie Talks.
Thank you for having me.
Just the first question for those that may not know you, who is Claude Greisler? What is your experience in the watchmaking sector?
So, yes, my name is Claude Greisler. I'm born 1978 in the same town where Mr. Armin Strom started his business. But my family background is watchmaking. So my grandmother and my grandfather, they were in the watch industry. My grandmother started her career during the Second World War by assembling stopwatches for the US Army. And after Second World War, my grandmother and my grandfather, they started the business producing spare parts for mechanical movements. So my grandmother was very proud of what she achieved. And when we were very young, she trained us how to assemble and disassemble watches. And as young kids, that was very fun to do. So I got really into watchmaking in a very early stage and then decided to become a watchmaker. So I graduated in watchmaking, did the watchmaker school for 4 years. And then I was still hungry of learning more about watches. So I became a technician for watch restoration. That was an education in the Museum of La Chaux-de-Fonds, the museum where you get trained to restaurate high complicated watches. So the watchmaker, the first education brings you to learn everything about mechanical watches like hand winding, automatic winding, date, chronograph, etc. And then the second education where I graduated was more towards tourbillon, minute repeaters, perpetual calendars, all the high-end stuff which we learned there.
Great. Tell us a little bit about the history of the brand. Who was Armin Strom?
So Mr. Armin Strom, actually he had a workshop in Burgdorf. That's a town where I grew up. In the old town of Burgdorf, my father was an optician, and next to my father's workshop, there was the workshop of Mr. Armin Strom. And Mr. Armin Strom was a very well-known watchmaker because he serviced watches and he also created his own watches. So he had this little workshop where his wife was selling jewels and watch brands. I mean, they had IWC, they were selling Omega, they were selling many other brands. This was mainly the part of what Armin Strom's wife did. And Mr. Armin Strom was the watchmaker who serviced the watches. So he was really the guy working at the workbench and doing servicing of watches. And it was out of his knowledge that Mr. Armin Strom started to skeletonize watches because he wanted to, when he assembled, that's the story he told me. So this is the way how I learned about Mr. Armin Strom. He told me that, when I sell a watch, I normally show the watch. There is an open case back with the crystal sapphire. I always flip the watch and I never sell the watch from the dial side. I always sell the watch from the back side because I wanna explain to people the mechanics, how beautiful the movement is made. And out of this idea, he started his own career of hand skeletonized watches because he was strongly believing that the mechanical movement should not be covered with the dial, that the mechanical movement should be visible from the front and from the back side.
Okay. Claude, what do you think is the DNA of Armin Strom and what inspires you at the time of creating a watch?
When Serge, so my business partner, Serge Michel, who is the owner of the company, we are running the company together since 2008. so we grew up together. He's also born 1978 in the same village where Mr. Armin Strom's from. And we know each other since kindergarten. And Serge was one of the first watch collector I met in my life. That was before even I was thinking about becoming a watchmaker. I remember that Serge was collecting the plastic watches, but he was the only guy in the school who was wearing different type of watches. Everybody had like one watch. This was many, many years ago. And Serge was the guy who was always like wearing a different color to different outfits. And he was inspired by his father. His father was also a watch collector. And then,
please tell me.
And then, he calls me up and Serge says, Mr. Armin Strom, I heard that he's ready to hand over his business to someone. And so I said, yeah, I know Mr. Armin Strom. I was working for another company, but I was aware of what Mr. Armin Strom was doing because Armin Strom was known for the hand skeletonized watches. He had a collaboration with Omega, so he was quite known for the hand skeletonized watches. And I said, yeah, why should we not take over our local heritage of watchmaking, which is very cool because we both born in Burgdorf, and Mr. Armin Strom has a very cool watch brand. He started a watch brand with a very clear vision of having the movement as a star of the watch. But he skeletonized the movement. He hand finished the movements on a very high level. He engraved, he polished the bevels by hand. So he was adding a lot of decoration. And we said, okay, this is cool. This is like, Armin Strom is known in Burgdorf, in the town where we're from. So that would be cool to take over the local heritage of watchmaking. But what we realized very early is hand skeletonizing is like painting a painting. If you hand paint a painting, every artist has his own technique, his own style, and his own vision of how the painting should look like. And we said, to copy what Mr. Strom did by hand would be very difficult because it will always look different because he had his style of doing the skeletonized watches. And Serge and I, we said, okay, listen, if we take over Armin Strom was, he wrote the first chapter. We're going to do the second chapter. The second chapter is when Claude and Serge were leading Armin Strom. There will hopefully be a third, a fourth, and the fifth chapter, which will be written by different people, but under the philosophy of having the movement as the star of the watch and having a movement which will always be visible from the front and from the backside. And when we said, okay, how are we gonna start chapter 2? It was obvious for me, with my background from the previous work I did, that we have to invest in a movement manufacturing. Remember 2009, Swatch announced, or ETA announced, and ETA was the biggest movement producer at that time. And they said, like, we do not going to deliver movement to non-Swatch Group brands. All the brands which belongs to Swatch Group, they will be delivered with ETA movement, but we're going to stop deliver all the other brands. And that was in the media everywhere. And so for us, it was very important to, if we start chapter 2 for Armin Strom, that we have to be able to create our own movements. And this was the start. When we took over the brand, we started with our manufacturing journey.
Mm-hmm. And how do you see the company nowadays? And if you have a look back to 1967, when Mr. Armin Strom created his own brand, how has it changed, or how do you see it in the next future? How is it going to be change the company?
I think there's the soul and the DNA of the brand is transparent mechanic, and it's this commitment to hand finishing. hand skeletonized watches, as the name says. They were made by hand. I mean, there was Mr. Armin Strom was filing, sawing, polishing, engraving the parts which were produced by a movement supplier, and he finished them by hand in one of the highest standards which were available in back in the days. And so the combination of having the movement transparent and having the movement fully hand decorated, there are two ingredients which are very important to haute horlogerie. And this is something which, even if this would be my wish, same as it was the wish of Mr. Armin Strom, if somebody then would write chapter 3 or chapter 4, that these ingredients are part of the brand. This is the soul of Armin Strom. Is this transparent mechanic? Is this fully hand finished parts? Because that's, if you showcase something, you want to showcase it in a way where everybody has to say, "Oh, that's wow, that's blows me away." This is, I mean, the people who do not have the experience to discover an Armin Strom watch, I mean, between the pictures and the real watch, it's such a big difference, because all those finishings, the light which captures the polished surfaces, the matte surfaces, so there's so much a fire in an Armin Strom watch that's something you have to discover in real. It's very difficult to capture for us in images. I mean, you get the first impression how the watch would look like, but if you want to get this fire and you want to feel that soul of the brand, then you have to go to see the watches in real.
Okay, great. What can you tell us about your different collections?
So we have currently, we are working on 2 collections. The reason why we are a small company doing 460 pieces. The reason why we have 2 collections is because we have a signature complication, which is called the resonance. And so there is one collection which is dedicated to all resonance movements. I'm going to explain the resonance maybe a little bit later. So there's one collection which is based to resonance. The other collection, it's called System 78. And System 78, obviously, as we learned, me and Serge, we are both born 1978. So this is our way of how an Armin Strom should look like. And what is important in both collections today is the movements are very innovative. So we never produce a watch movement just to give a function. Let's say, to give you an example, our Tribute 1, which is the smallest watch which we have in System 78, it's a 38 millimeter case. It's a 3-hand hand winding watch. So what we did is we increased the power reserve to 100 hours. In the gravity equal force, for example, is a micro rotor who winds up the watch, and it's combined with the equal force barrel. So there's a torque regulation system in the barrel to guarantee just an optimum energy transmission to the escapement. Or the orbit, where we have a date function on demand. So there's a date function printed on the ceramic bezel. You have a pusher with a column wheel where you can engage the date or disengage the date hand. So movement, I think that's the third component, is in the new collection of Armin Strom. The fact that we do our movements in-house allows us also to be very creative when it comes to movement innovation. So yes, the 2 collections we have is System 78, is resonance, and all those movements, they have something very particular.
I was going to ask you if you could explain in a simple way what is the constant force at the resonance system that you use in your watches.
So resonance is not, we are not the inventor of resonance. Resonance is a phenomenon which is more than 400 years old. Resonance got discovered by Christian Huygens, the inventor of the pendulum. And what he realized in his workshop is that 2 pendulum clocks who beat in sync are more precise than one pendulum clock, which just works on its own. So when you are able to have two movements which are next to each other and they start to influence each other, the time becomes more precise and the time becomes more consistent. That means the two pendulums beating exactly in the same direction are more solid to temperature changes, to little mistakes in the gear train. So there is a lot of added benefit when it comes to this synchronization. So there was a lot of watchmakers over the last few hundred years who got inspired by this phenomenon of synchronization of two movements. We had Abraham Louis Breguet, we had Antti Janvier, we had François Paul Journe, who did a resonance watch. So there's only, I think, a handful of watchmakers, maybe the best watchmakers in the world, who dedicated themselves to this complication, to this phenomenon of having, when you have two movements in one watch and you master the synchronization of the two watch, which is then called a resonance mechanism. And this is something which is very useful. I mean, we are talking chronometry. Chronometry is, a tourbillon is chronometry. A constant force escapement is chronometry. A constant force mechanism is chronometry. All those mechanisms are built to make the watch more precise. A resonance watch is built to make the watch more precise and to make the watch more consistent, because you average out the mistakes of one single movement by having it synchronized with the second movement. Or in another way, in physics, we are talking about the shared mode of motion. That means if you master to synchronize two elements, it becomes very solid, because the two elements, they become one, and they beat exactly tick 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 tock tick tock tick tock. It's exactly the same. You don't hear a difference between the two tick tock of the two movements, but they help each other to create a very, very solid tick tock. The tick tock becomes stronger. The more stronger the tick tock becomes, the more solid it is against shocks or against impacts or against little mistakes which are happening in the movement. Because every mechanical movement is a mechanical mechanism. It's built out of mechanical components. The mechanical components, they have tolerances. The mainspring in the barrel, the gear train, the escapement, the balance wheel, the hairspring, this is all mechanical components, and we try to produce them as precise as possible to get close to 0 seconds a day. Mm-hmm. The question is, how can we become very, very solid to 0 seconds a day? And therefore, if you have two movements which are synchronized, as I mentioned, the tick-tock becomes much stronger and it becomes much more precise also. And this is the idea of resonance, is to make the watch more precise and to make the watch more consistent, thanks to the synchronization of two movements in one watch.
Mm-hmm. What could be the deviation of a watch with a resonance system if you compare to a normal watch?
It's over time, it's much, as I mentioned, it's much more consistent. What we are used to indicate is an average of seconds after 24 hours. We always measure, or we tell the precision of a watch in seconds per day. But there is also a lot of things happening during the day. I mean, as I mentioned, the mainspring is maybe not delivering a very consistent energy to the gear train. So there's always, if you measure a watch on a measurement instrument, you will see that the curve of the torque goes always a little bit up and down and up and down. And the fact is, when you have two movements and you synchronize them, the up and down becomes much more flat curve. And then it's, in theory, we are at 0 second. We can regulate a watch at 0 second. Every mechanical watch can be regulated close to 0 seconds. It depends on how good the components are, and it depends on how good the watchmaker is.
Okay,
Now,
great.
we have an impact. So wrist watches are worn on the wrist.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to, if we go a little bit further than just mentioning the 0 seconds, if I move my wrist back and forth, there's a lot of impacts going to my watch movement.
Mm-hmm.
If you only have one movement in a watch, the movement gets all the impacts on one movement. When you have two movements, you split the kind of impacts which happens, and the average will be automatically more precise because they equal each other out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very cool looking animation.
Yes, for
Honestly,
sure.
for me, it's because it was never supposed to be on the dial side. If you see all our resonance watches, the two balance wheels and the clutch is visible on the dial side, which
Mm-hmm.
was at the beginning, it was never our attention to put that on the dial side. But all the people who worked on the resonance was always hidden with the dial, and it was on the back side. You could see the two balance wheels. But once we realized how obvious the synchronization is and how easy to understand that mechanism is and how cool the animation of synchronization is, we said ourselves, no, we have to build the two balance wheels on the dial side.
Mm-hmm. Great. Your last release was the one that you have said, the sporty watch with the day on demand on the bezel. What are your plans for the future? New collections, new complications? Tell us a little bit. When are we going to see new releases? Geneva Watch Days, maybe Dubai.
So we're gonna release a lot of new colors this year. We
Mm-hmm.
said 2025 is a color release year for Armin Strom. A completely new caliber will be launched in 2026 at Watches and Wonders. Yeah. That's the
Mm-hmm.
goal for now. And it's
Okay.
something in the Resonance collection,
Mm-hmm.
because Resonance is it's very, very important for Armin Strom. The Resonance collection is something, because there's no other brand except a few other. I would say today it's maybe the most reliable resonance watch on the market. And resonance is such an old phenomenon which got described in all the watchmaker books. Everybody was talking about resonance and this phenomenon of synchronization, but nobody really achieved a dedicated, a built for purpose mechanism to solve that problem. And the Armin Strom approach to resonance, it's a built for purpose mechanism which guarantees that the resonance is very solid. And yeah, there is a lot of benefits in a resonance watch. I mean, we have two movements which are synchronized. There's a lot of complications in the watch industry which do suffer to power. I mean, a
Mm-hmm.
chronograph is, when you start a chronograph, there's always a lot of power which is being taken by the chronograph mechanism. When you have a perpetual calendar during midnight, when the calendar has to do the change of the date and maybe the months at the same time, there's a lot of energy involved. So a lot of components do suffer, a lot of movements do suffer to have enough torque for the complications. And when you have two movements which are synchronized, there's a lot of opportunities which you have to create new complications. So I think with resonance, honestly, I think we are at the very, very beginning of resonance.
Okay, great. Claude, what are your main markets? And do you plan to have presence in Spain in the future?
Definitely, we are. You know, as I mentioned, we do 460 watches now.
Mm-hmm.
We have our annual capacity is sold out. We have, unfortunately, we are still struggling by increasing the quantities. This is a bit due to our commitment to hand finishing. So we have to train people on hand finishing to be able to increase the quantity. There will be a certain limit in the way how we do our watches. I mean, to go from 460 to increase to 500 or 600 watches, it will be a huge challenge for the company, especially by finding and training enough people to get that quality work done. That's our biggest issue. We decided to not work with external partner because we want to be under control of all the production components, decoration. This is our philosophy of we do not work with suppliers for the movement. The movement is all the components are produced in house, but we don't do the hairspring, we don't do the mainspring. So we have a partner for a mainspring, we have a partner for hairsprings. We don't do the rubies, but the screws, the pinions, the wheels, the main plate, the bridges, the small steer parts, the winding stem, everything is produced in house. All the components are fully decorated in house. And this is something which is very, very important to us because we want to offer our client a watch which comes from Armin Strom, which is built from Armin Strom for our clients. And this is the reason why we do not work with external partners. To give you an idea on when it comes to decoration, decoration is an endless topic. I think we just on a decoration we could do an interview for 10 hours because decoration is such a big conversation. Every company has its own approach in decoration. I think we all do, people who do hand beveling or commit themselves to do the hand beveling or to do the Geneva stripes by hand or the perlage, you find that there's not a right or wrong. It's about how the company wants to do it. And there's like, do you want to go for a flat beveling? Do you want to go for a curved beveling? How do you want to do interior angles? How your Geneva stripe should look like? From far, they all look the same. If you go closer, there's a huge difference. So this is why we said, okay, no, we want to have this decoration knowledge and the style in-house. If we start to work with external partners, we're going to find different styles in Armin Strom because not every workshop or partner will do the same finishing than Armin Strom is doing in-house. This is why we do it in-house. So once we have enough people and we can increase our quantities, I would love to have a partner in Spain. Because I love wine from Spain. I love to do windsurfing in Spain. So there's always a reason to go to Spain.
Okay, and your main market nowadays?
I would say worldwide. We have the US is a strong market. Asia is a strong market. Europe is a strong market. Middle East is a strong market. I think we cannot say that we have of course, due to the size, the North USA is a very important market. Historically, a lot of collectors, a lot of lovers of mechanical mechanisms. Doesn't matter if it's cars or watches. I mean, there's a lot of vintage car collectors in the US since many, many years. There's a lot of watch collectors since hundreds of years in the US. There is Southeast Asia, Japan, Middle East. Depends. The 460, the demand is on each market is much higher than what we are able to deliver. And so it's a bit, for now, I have to say we are in a very comfortable situation, which also was not always the case. The world of independent watchmaking has changed in the last maybe 3 to 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
There was a period of time where we had to fight for independent watchmaking.
Yeah.
We had to convince people that independent watchmaking is the true watchmaking, because it's only when you do small quantities you can finish the movement by hand. You can add mechanical innovation to your watch movement, something which in a mass production is not possible. And so when we started in 2009, there was every single sale we did was something which we almost celebrated, because it was tough to there were always a bit of independent collectors worldwide. So the first few watches a year, they were always, let's say, maybe more easy to sell. But to convince collectors which were not independent into independence to buy independence was a tough job. I mean, there was a lot of back and forth, talking, explaining, sending images, having conversation, inviting them for dinner, re-meet them at the market. And suddenly, a few years ago, it was like almost like this. Independence became popular, mostly during Corona crisis. More people spent time on social media, or I don't know. There was a lot of factors. I think there's not one. We cannot say this was the reason why independent became popular. It's just COVID. No, I think it was. In general, it's a trend. I mean, collecting watches is more popular than maybe 15 or 20 years ago. In general, I mean, there's more demand in watches, and the people today, they want to understand, where is that product from? How is this product made?
Mm-hmm.
Just because I see the helmets behind you, when we started with Armin Strom, we were thinking about Serge and I as young businessmen. We said, how can we build up Armin Strom as a watch brand? From a one-man show to a watch brand,
Mm-hmm.
And then we said, okay, where do people? How could we spread the word? How could people get attention about Armin Strom? And we started to do a partnership in Formula One,
Mm-hmm.
because first of all, it was thanks through a friendship that we had the opportunity as a young watch brand to be sponsor of a Formula One team, and but also that opened doors. We got in contact with people. We could start to sell the brand, and so there was always okay, we are an independent brand, but we are also partner of F1, or we are partner of sailing, or we always had to link the product
Mm-hmm.
to a kind of a sponsoring activity. Today is completely different. People, they want to see when they come, they don't want to listen to a story of Formula One or of sailing GP or horse jumping or whatever. I mean, I have two people from Germany coming. They asked me to spend a half a day in the workshop
Mm-hmm.
to get closer to the people who produce the watch and how do they make the watch. Watchmaking became popular again. People
Mm-hmm.
are ready to spend money, not because it's a luxury good which is linked to a sponsoring. It's because watchmaking is great again. People love what watchmakers do. They
Mm-hmm.
are ready to spend money because there are humans behind the watch who put a lot of effort, a lot of emotion into the product to get something very unique, which is different than what you get from a mass production. And this added value is something which got very popular in the last few years, so that people rediscover the artwork which is behind the a watch. Something which got maybe a little bit lost in. Don't forget that we had all the movements were mechanically made till let's say in the late 70s, early 80s. There were the first quartz watches coming.
Mm-hmm.
So there were watches on the wrist which were cheaper and more precise. So people started to doubt 80s, 90s. To sell a mechanical wristwatch was not that easy. I mean, even the big brands, they had quartz watches
Yeah.
because people were asking for quartz. They
Mm-hmm.
bought the status of a brand, but they were not really interested in what's inside. There may be a handful of people still, like the geeks and nerds, they were still like, this caliber is like this and like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly, beginning of the 20th century, people started to refocus a little bit on watches, on how the watch is made. There's next to the quartz watch, there's also high-end mechanical watches, and the thing became popular, and then maybe thanks to all the connected watches people are used, because then came the smartphone came, people were having the opportunity to get the time on their phone. Then they started to wear a connected watch. And now suddenly the mechanical watch is cool again, because you don't have to throw it away. It can be repaired even in 500-600 years. There's humans putting an effort in something mechanical. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you what are the pros and cons of being a small watch independent brand, and also disconnected with, as you have said, I think that there is a revival of the interest of the people for the independent watch brands, in opposition to the lack of interest of the new generation in mainstream brands, right? Because the number of watches sold year by year are going down. How do you see the situation of the market and your point of view from an independent watch brand?
I think the whole watch selling journey has changed, and that's something we have to understand. It's when we look back, there was no secondary market. There was what everybody called it a gray market. There was an opportunity to resell your watch, but if you had a conversation with somebody who was buying a watch, it was like, okay, I bought that watch because it was a special moment, or I had a bonus, or I could afford the watch, and then we'll handle over that watch to my next generation. So it was like a purchase which was done, and the money was gone. The last few years, the secondary market became very, very important. People started to realize that, okay, on the secondary market, the products can go up, products can go down, but at least there is a market where I can resell my product. So that made it more easy for younger people to invest in an expensive watch. For example, if they had like the first big bonus, 30 years old, you don't maybe think about family and buying your own house. You just want to have fun. So you buy a watch for 30,000, but you realize that watch, I can sell it in 2 years if I need, and I will at least get half of the price, or if better, the full price, and if I'm lucky, even more money back that I paid for. And this is I think it's a very, very fundamental thing which has changed in purchasing a watch. It's not a purchase anymore where the money is gone. It's I can buy, I can enjoy, and I can resell. I mean, I know a handful of watchmakers. They limit their collection to 5 or 6 pieces, and then if they want to add a new one, they sell one. And they add one, and they sell one. They add one, and they sell one. They flip, and they have quite a move in their collection. There's people that still can afford, and they buy, and they keep. I'm more the guy who keeps. I have my wife since many, many years, the same wife, so I always keep things at home. I also kept all my watches, but I think that's a factor which is very important. And then I think one thing which we have to consider is that we are living in a world where everything we throw away. That starts with clothes. I mean, we buy cheap clothes and we throw them away. It's a huge problem. Mobile phones is something after 2 years you have to throw it away and you have to get a new one, because that's something which we have, the way how we live with. with those things. There's CO2. It's a big conversation today. Should I take the plane to go on holiday, or should I spend my holidays locally? Food conversations is the same thing. If I go to a good restaurant, is it like regional food? Why should I drink French wine in Spain where Spanish people have good wine, so I can buy locally? The wine doesn't have to come from California to be drunk in Spain. Maybe you have good wine. So local, these are all factors which are important to CO2. And so there's when I was young, the most important thing for a young man who had a little bit of success was a very cool car. That's the first thing everybody was dreaming on, like either a motorcycle or a car. Today it's different. The new generation, I have a lot of young watchmakers here. They don't drive cars anymore because they say it's a nightmare. You have to service that thing. You have to find a parking space. You have to get the number plates. It's a mess. I can rent a car. If I need a car, I just rent it. So there's a lot of soft factors which do change the world maybe a little bit, but we are still humans. And there's a human factor of rewarding yourself. The early hunters, the successful hunters, they were putting the teeth of the tigers or of the animals they shoot around her neck. That's rewarding yourself. You want to take a social position. That social position, maybe in the 90s, was given by a nice car or a big house or a big apartment. Or spending holidays in the Maldives. So now on the other hand, we have these soft factors where the young people, they say like, why you're stupid? Why do you take a plane to go on holiday if the sea is just a few hundred meters away from here? We can spend our holidays, in your case, in Spain. We can drink the Spanish wine. So, but still rewarding is extremely important. And I think the watch is an element which is, for a man especially, is ideal to get yourself a social position. And this is, so the world changes, but on the other hand, we have these mechanical watches which are made by hand, which are made from humans. They invest a lot of human efforts. They're not consuming CO2 like hell to produce the watch because the movements are made by hand. It's hand decoration, it's hand finished, it's done with wood and paste. And so I guess this could be also a factor of why the independent watch industry or the products made by hand become more popular. I think there's so many ingredients which we have to put together and to analyze to think why watches are cool. And we see that. We have a lot of young people, not only young people, but we have more young people than we had 10 years ago or 15 years when we started buying high-end watches than today.
Claude, what's the price range of your watches?
So we start at just below 20,000 Swiss. And in System 78, we can say it's between 20 and 45,000. And in Resonance is between 70 and 130,000. And then we have the masterpieces, which are between 200 and 380,000.
Okay.
But the 380,000, the annual production of those pieces is very limited. We're going to do maybe 2 a year because that is mainly our minute repeater Resonance. And that takes so much time. And we only have, for now, we have one watchmaker who's able to do it. Because there are more than 400 components which you have to bring together to adjust, to decorate, so that's a tough thing. So it's very, very limited, those kind of watches.
Okay. Claude, my last question. If you were not wearing an Armin Strom, what brand and model would you wear? No limits, huh?
Okay. To be fair with all my competitors, the watch I wear the most when I'm not wearing a mechanical watch is a connected watch which I use for. I love climbing, and I think for sports activity, a connected watch with a GPS is more useful than a mechanical watch, because the watch, if I'm somewhere in the mountains and I need to know the height, I need to know the distance, I need to know how much time I spend. There's a backtrack function if I have a lot of clouds and get lost. It's a very useful watch for that kind of sports activity. I would never wear a resonance to go climbing or skiing. That doesn't make sense for me. Do I have fun wearing a Garmin? No. It gives me the function I need. I'm honestly, and it became very difficult to wear. I collect watches, I also collect vintage watches, and it became very, very difficult to wear something else than your own watch. Because I think you put so much effort in it. You're so happy with the details, the way how it looks, the way how it's polished. It's for me, it's a bit every watch which I'm able to launch is for me is the perfect watch. There's I don't have to make compromises, because when I create the watch, I have the opportunity to work on all the little details, and I can adjust the details. And when you look at an Armin Strom, there's a lot of little details which become visible, and therefore I'm struggling by wearing another watch brand. I have a lot of respect for a lot of independent watchmakers. I cannot, if I'm traveling through a city, I cannot just pass by a watch shop. I always have to go and see the watches. I love and appreciate watches. It doesn't matter if it's a big brand or a small brand. If it's low end or high end, I just love watches. I can spend hours and hours and looking at them. I mean, at Watches and Wonders, the first thing I do, and normally I arrive one as the earliest. So this is my first trip, is on the first day just before people enter. I try to, for at least an hour, I try to go and see all the novelties and all the watches. And at the last day, I spend more than half of the last day going really, and I ask if I can go inside, see the collection, because I love watches. So it's
Okay, Claude Greisler, master watchmaker of Armin Strom, thank you for being with us at the Indie Talks of Doble Firma. It has been a pleasure, and hoping to see you and your watches here in Spain soon.
yes, it will be a big pleasure. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.